Missing someone. Love with all your heart. Missing someone. Love with heart.
What's up, guys? How is everyone doing? My name is Lauren. For those of you guys who are new, I go by Locks by Lauren on Instagram, and today I have a very special episode to share with you. This client of mine traveled from St. Louis to Los Angeles to get her hair done by me, and today we are going to turn her into a silver balayage. She is tired of coloring her roots and stuff. She just wants something that will grow out a little bit softer and more blended with her natural grays. So that is exactly what we are going to do today. This is her before. She's been doing like base color for years, and then her last few colors she did some highlights, but her highlights didn't get as light as she would want them. So we're going to work on lightening everything up and just kind of blending it all together. What I'm most concerned about at this point is all of the dark that's on the underneath. It's pretty solid underneath here where she has her old base color. And also in the back here, she doesn't have too much gray. So we're going to be adding some highlights in the roots just to like give her some brightness and have a more blended look overall. So I began to mix up my liner. I am using the Pulprite Blonde AF. I mixed up some 20 vol and 6 vol to start off with something light because she has a lot of hair. So as I go through her hair, I will be bumping up my developer so everything can catch up. But using a lower developer at first gives me some time to kind of get through the highlight and everything. So as I was saying, she has a lot of hair, so her foils were stacked. I literally took sections, like sliced her head really thin in the back to get as much saturation and an even lift as possible. So her hair, all those foils are actually resting on a tray because it was just hurting her neck too much. I probably at this point have already used a full bag of the Blonde AF bleach on her, and so I'm just going in. Here you can see I've pretty much have finished foiling the back, and in the back what I did was I just took slices all the way up the head and teased it, and then just kind of lightened everything solid. And then as I got towards the top, this is similar to how I'm foiling her right now. I basically started to do a baby light, and then whatever is underneath my baby light, like the negative space, I went ahead and teased that and just like saturated all of the ends of that. But I think what was most challenging at this point was everything at the crown, because she had a partial highlight previous to this. I did try to weave out all of her previous blonde that would look like about a level 8 and 9 because I didn't want that to break at all. So once I was done foiling her whole head, all those pieces that I like picked out that were like about a level 8 and 9, I just balayaged it outside, just like threw some lightener on it so that it could catch up to everything and get as even. So I'm pretty much just like highlighting the dark here. It was a very tedious project. Again, I wanted to get as much lift as possible because she traveled like so far to get here, and I was willing to just put in the work and try to get her as light as possible without taking any shortcuts or anything, or having her like come back in for a second session. And this is honestly the only way to do it, is to take really thin, paper thin sections and take your time and just tediously like pick out everything. And I think this is probably the longest that I have ever foiled someone. This took me about 3.5 hours to do her whole head, and mind you, like, she has a lot of hair and it's long too, and I wanted to be as gentle and careful as possible. In all of my formulations, I did use Brazilian Bond Builder, and Brazilian Bond Builder is similarly to like Olaplex, and I just wanted to make sure, you know, that her hair was going to be okay through this whole process and everything. And throughout everything, I just kept going back in and checking and making sure that her hair was lifting exactly where I wanted it to be. Okay, so once I was done like foiling her entire head, the back was pretty much ready to be rinsed because everything that was at her root was almost to like a level 10, and I needed to just rinse it off. But the ends, you can see, are still a little bit warm. They kind of lifted to about a level 7. So to even it out, I went back in and just applied some lightener. I did dry the hair a little bit, so it's a little damp, but I used some Blonde AF with 20 vol, and I'm taking about an inch section and just applying the lightener on the mids and ends wherever that old base color just didn't lift out all the way, and then that will help everything to kind of catch up to the front. So even though I'm doing the back this way, I didn't approach the front the same way. So as I got towards the front later, you'll see I go back in and open the foils that are in the front and just apply on the mids and ends where the old base color is still kind of warm. I just apply fresh new lightener onto those pieces so that the ends can kind of catch up to whatever the root is lifting at. And that does work because lightener does lose its strength, I believe, after maybe like 45 minutes. I feel like it's definitely not as strong as it is when you first apply it or when you first mix it. So it does still work, but it's just not as powerful. So applying fresh new lightener onto the mids and ends in the front foils definitely helps the ends to catch up to the front. And I do apply that together just to save time. And if I didn't apply the lightener on the mids and ends in the back here while the front is still processing and did it differently like that, I would have wasted or added on more time to our project here. And as I'm going through the back here, you can see the slightest bit of dimension on the top. I did do some small teasing at the root to kind of soften that line of demarcation a bit. And I wasn't too worried about the line of demarcation either because I'm going to go in and shadow root it anyways. But the teasing definitely helped soften and add just slight dimension. And then here you can see I already rinsed out the ends where we had added that extra lightener, and everything looks pretty even. And here I have already finished foiling the front, and now I'm just going back in and applying the fresh lightener on the mids and ends there. As you can see, I like using these long foils and not like folding up the hair, because if you fold up the hair in the foil, sometimes you can get like warm spots. So I like to just kind of lay the hair flat on my foils, and I did scrape off some lightener where the root is almost done processing, and then just reapplied fresh lightener on the mids and ends. Also, for her money piece, I did go in and do slices back to back to keep it nice and solid. So for my toners, I am using the Pulpari Rapid Toners, and Silver and Violet are my favorite colors to use. These are my go-tos whenever I do silvers on any of my clients, and I love it because you can change the deepness or lightness of these colors by just adding in more 6 volume, just changing up the ratio of how you mix them with 6 volume. And so I will be mixing up a darker version for her root and then a more diluted lighter version for her mids and ends. And so I'm pretty sure I did Violet and Silver 1:1, and then I mixed it 1:1 with the 6 volume. But for her mids and ends, I believe I did mix it 1:1, the Silver and Violet, and then with the 6 volume, I believe I mixed it like 1:3 or 1:4 with the 6 volume, just to make it lighter, and it just kind of slows it down and creates like an even lighter silver with less pigment. And the reason why I like to add violet into my formula instead of just using like the silver toner is because I feel like it gives a better fade in case like my client's a little bit more yellow, makes it last a little bit longer. And I feel like sometimes if I just use the silver toner by itself and it creates more of like a blue silver, sometimes it can fade a little bit green just depending on how much yellow is in their hair. So I just, for safety reasons, like to use more violet silver for my silver formulas. And before I applied her toner, I did pre-tone her with some Barcelona purple shampoo, and I let this sit for about like 5 to 10 minutes maybe, just so that I could see where it needed to be toned more. So here you can see I kind of dried her a little bit, and from the money piece you can see that where the pieces are level 10 opposed to where they're level 9. So as I'm toning her hair, I go ahead and hit where it's mostly yellow first before applying where it's mostly white. And I did dry her hair because it's easier to see those warmer spots when everything is pretty much dried opposed to when it's fully wet, because sometimes the hair, it just looks darker when it's wet. So this was just so that I could see and really pinpoint and tone in the warm areas first. And I do like to do this because it keeps the brightness and then it prevents you from having spots in the hair that are overly toned. And I opted to use the rapid toners for her shadow root instead of the Factionate colors because I didn't want her silver to fade brown at all. I needed this to fade blonde so that she wouldn't see any bands later. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look of her hair. This project took about 8.5 hours. And we used no heat on her, just naturally lifted and used low volumes with Bond Builder in all her colors, and her hair felt pretty darn good. There was no breakage at all, which I was pretty shocked about because we were going so light. Her hair felt extremely healthy still after her appointment today. I mean, she will have to do some like hair masks, but nothing too serious. You can see the shadow root from that formula. It's a little bit violet, but she wasn't too worried about it because I told her it was going to wash out in a few washes. And I always tell my clients that it's best to do more of a pigmented gray, which is this violet gray, because it will just make it last longer. And since she traveled so far to get her hair done, I want her to enjoy the color as long as possible. So I told her it would be best for us to do a more pigmented silver gray so that she could enjoy the fade of this, because these colors do fade extremely fast and she will have to wash her hair in like ice cold water and then maintain it with some Barcelona purple shampoo. But yeah, I know that I didn't go through every step that I did on her. I mean, I was trying to get through this color correction as fast as possible, so I did miss some steps in this video. But if you guys have any questions or anything, just leave me a comment down below and I will try and help you guys out as much as I can. But I hope you guys learned something new from this and feel inspired to try it out, or maybe do it on yourself even. But thank you guys so much for watching and tuning into this week's video, and I will talk to you guys next week.